Hello, my name is Peter from Wiltshire Libraries, and welcome to another episode of our Tea and Chat sessions, where we share and chat about poems and writing with you, whilst you hopefully enjoy a good cup of tea. I've got mine here, a cup of Assam tea today, strong enough to stand a spoon up in. As we've recently been experiencing unprecedented gales and storms, all the featured poems today have a windy theme. The first is a classic that I don't think can be beaten as a description of a kestrel in flight, hovering on the wind. It is, of course, The Windhover, by Gerard Manley Hopkins. I caught this morning's minion, kingdom of daylight's dauphin, dapple dawn-drawn falcon, in his riding of the rolling level underneath him steady air, and striding high there, how he rung upon the rein of a wimpling wing, in his ecstasy, then off, forth on swing, as a skate's heel sweeps smooth on a bow bend, the hurl and gliding, rebuffed the big wind. My heart in hiding stirred for a bird, the achieve of, the mastery of the thing. Brute beauty and valour and act, oh air, pride, plume, here buckle, and the fire that breaks from thee then, a billion times told lovelier, more dangerous. O my chevalier! No wonder of it, sheer plowed make plough down Sicilian shine, and blue break embers, ah my dear, fall gall themselves and gash gold vermilion. The Windhover by Gerard Manley Hopkins has been read by several of us on Tea and Chat in the past, but it really is such a stunning poem and perfect for today's theme of poems featuring the wind. Incidentally, you may wonder why we don't read out more recent contemporary poems sometimes as well as these classics. This is because copyright protects against broadcast of poems until 70 years after the death of the poet. But we do hope these sessions inspire you to seek out all the treasures in your local library's poetry section. I've been reading A Fire in My Head, a collection of poems by Ben Okri that covers topics including the refugee crisis, Grenfell Tower fire and the corona pandemic. I can thoroughly recommend it. That's A Fire in My Head by Ben Okri, available free from Wiltshire Libraries. Next is a rather strange wind poem by the Scottish poet George MacDonald. It's almost like a cross between a nursery rhyme and a folk story. See what you think. It's called The Wind and the Moon by George MacDonald. Said the wind to the moon, I will blow you out. You stare in the air like a ghost in a chair, always looking what I am about. I hate to be watched, I'll blow you out. The wind blew hard, and out went the moon, so deep, on a heap of clouds to sleep. Down lay the wind and slumbered soon, muttering low, I've done for that moon. He turned in his bed. She was there again, on high in the sky with her one ghost eye. The moon shone white and alive and plain. Said the wind, I will blow you out again. The wind blew hard and the moon grew dim. With my sledge and my wedge I've knocked off her edge. If only I blow right fierce and grim, the creature will soon be dimmer than dim. He blew, and she thinned to a thread. One puff's more than enough to blow her to snuff. One good puff more where the last was bred, and glimmer, glimmer, glum will go the thread. He blew a great blast, and the thread was gone. In the air, nowhere, was a moonbeam bare. Far off and harmless the shy stars shone. Sure and certain the moon was gone. The wind he took to his revels once more. On down in town like a merry mad clown, he leapt and hallooed with whistle and roar. What's that? The glimmering thread once more? He flew in a rage, he danced and blew, but in vain was the pain of his bursting brain. For still the broader the moon scrap grew, the broader he swelled his big cheeks and blew. Slowly she grew, till she filled the night, and shone on her throne in the sky alone, a matchless, wonderful, silvery light, radiant and lovely, the queen of the night. Said the wind, what a marvel of power am I! With my breath, good faith, I blew her to death. First blew her away right out of the sky, then blew her in, what strength have I? But the moon, she knew nothing about the affair. for high in the sky, with her one white eye, motionless miles above the air, she had never heard the great wind blare. That was The Wind and the Moon by George MacDonald. The next poem, by Alan Cunningham, doesn't have a title, so it's known by its first line, which is "A wet sheet in a flowing sea." In this case, the sheet is a rope that controls the sails, and it's wet because the ship is sailing through strong winds and sea spray. I think the title sounds like an unfortunate accident, and it should be known by the last line, which is "Our heritage the sea." But anyway, listen out for some stirring imagery of sailing on the high seas in a tall-masted ship. A wet sheet in a flowing sea, a wind that follows fast, and fills the white and rustling sail, and bends the gallant mast. And bends the gallant mast, my boys, while like the eagle free, away the good ship flies and leaves old England on the lee. Oh, for a soft and gentle wind, I heard a fair one cry, but give to me the snoring breeze and the white waves heaving high, and white waves heaving high, my lads, the good ship tight and free. The world of waters is our home, and merry men are we. There's tempest in yon horned moon, and lightning in yon cloud, but hark the music, mariners, the wind is piping loud. The wind is piping loud, my boys, the lightning flashes free, while the hollow oak our palace is, our heritage the sea. That was the poem known as A Wet Sheet in a Flowing Sea by Alan Cunningham. I like this poem's description of a wooden sailing ship at the end as a hollow oak palace protecting the sailors from the destructive tempest outside. But at the same time the poem celebrates and is exhilarated by the power of the wind. The American poet Emily Dickinson wrote multiple poems about the wind. This one's sometimes listed as Poem 24, but it describes winter gales beating at the door and looks forward to summer breezes. It's also known as The Wind. The Wind by Emily Dickinson. Of all the sounds dispatched abroad, there's not a charge to me, like that old measure in the boughs, that phraseless melody. The wind does, working like a hand, whose fingers brush the sky, then quiver down with tufts of tune, permitted gods and me. When winds go round and round in bands, and thrum upon the door, and birds take places overhead to bear them orchestra, I crave him grace of summer boughs, if such an outcast be. He never heard that fleshless chant rise solemn in the tree, as if some caravan of sound on deserts in the sky had broken rank, then knit and passed in seamless company. That was The Wind by Emily Dickinson. When I mentioned to a friend that my theme for this session was poems about wind, she rather cheekily requested this anonymous limerick about baked beans. This is the least rude version I could find. Beans, beans, the musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. The more you toot, the better you feel, so eat baked beans with every meal. And she said I wouldn't read it out. However, it's quoted by Bart Simpson, so it's okay by me. At the opposite end of the poetic scale is Shelley's epic Ode to the West Wind. I'm going to share an extract with you here that has the opening 2 stanzas, followed by the last section of the poem. Ode to the West Wind by Percy Bysshe Shelley. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. Yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes, O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed the winged seeds where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion o'er the dreaming earth, and fill, driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odours plain and hill. Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, O hear. Thou on whose stream mild the steep sky's commotion, loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves are shed, shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. Angels of rain and lightning there are spread on the blue surface of thine airy surge, like the bright hair uplifted from the head of some fierce Maenad, even from the dim verge of the horizon to the zenith's height. The locks of the approaching storm, thou dirge of the dying year, to which this closing night will be the dome of a vast sepulchre, vaulted with all thy congregated might, of vapours from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail will burst. Oh, hear! That's the end of the second section of the poem. If you look up the third and fourth stanzas, Shelley gets very worked up about what the west wind can do to seas and oceans, as well as trees and forests. But I'm going to skip to the last stanza. Make me thy lyre, even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own? The tumult of thy mighty harmonies will take from both a deep autumnal tone. Sweet though in sadness, be thou spirit fierce, my spirit, be thou me, impetuous one. Drive my dead thoughts over the universe, like withered leaves to quicken a new birth, and by the incarnation of this verse, scatter as from an unextinguished hearth, ashes and sparks, my words among mankind. Be through my lips to unawakened earth the trumpet of a prophecy, O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? That was extracts from Ode to the West Wind by Percy Bysshe Shelley. And isn't that an uplifting thought in the last line about winter gales, that if winter comes, can spring be far behind? I like to think that now, as we are in late winter, that spring is just around the corner. And when I look out of the window of my poetry cave, I can see the first daffodils are out already, despite the recent attentions of Storm Eunice. And so what better poem to follow than William Wordsworth's famous poem about daffodils dancing in the wind with spring around the corner. I wandered lonely as a cloud. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beside the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. It's a poem that gets read a lot, particularly at this time of year, when we're moving from winter into spring. But I love the images in it. It bears repeating. And I just think that it's a fantastic image of those thousands of wild daffodils dancing in the wind, brightening the mood. And when we look out of our windows at the moment at the continuing rough weather, it's nice to see those early daffodils and crocuses coming through and knowing that spring is just around the corner. That's it for this tea and chat session from Wiltshire Libraries. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll tune in again to more poetry and chat, and hopefully a nice cup of tea. See you next time that you tune in to one of Wiltshire Libraries tea and chat sessions. Thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.